Chiro here for Umbra Games with a review of Death's Door, available digitally on all major platforms, released July 20th, 2021, with a PS5 and Switch physical coming from Special Reserve Games. The game was published by Devolver Digital and developed by Acid Nerve. I played on an Xbox Series X with Game Pass for the review. Death's Door is an overhead, what I like to call item procedural, action-adventure game, where you play a crow, who's a reaper, charged with harvesting the souls of living creatures. When you begin the game, the soul you're supposed to go after gets stolen away and locked behind the titular Death's Door. And of course, plenty of MacGuffins are needed to get that door open. Your quest will take you to a handful of locations, chasing down 3 other souls, where you'll have an outer area to navigate, a dungeon to gather 4 stagnant Reaper souls, where you'll acquire a new spell, then a boss dungeon where you'll have to beat down the immortal resident within each time. Your crow has a 3-attack combo, and you can dodge roll with some invincibility frames. You can also use the left trigger and B button to use ranged abilities. Begin the game with 4 magic dots, and your starting spell, for example, the bow and arrow will consume 1 dot. When magic is depleted, it can be refilled by successful melee hits on enemies, or some assorted environmental targets like mushrooms and icicles. I'm not quite sure why they didn't use left trigger and the face buttons, instead of selecting the spell with the D-pad and then only using B button, but is what it is. The game features what I term paced combat. You have a set time between swings in the combo and have some downtime after your 3rd strike before you can swing again. While you are invincible for a moment while rolling, there's a cooldown between rolls as well. You have to pay close attention to incoming strikes and make sure you're not in the middle of a swing and have a dodge up when necessary, otherwise you'll get smacked. There are quite a few enemy types, some range, some kamikaze melee, some wizards that teleport in and out, and giant knights that will just pound you into the floor. There's a good balance of learning when to attack and when to play defensively as you encounter each new type. Some projectiles can be reflected when struck with the weapon, for example, too, so figuring out when that's optimal and when it's not is important as well. You start the game with 4 life dots, and you can, of course, find crystal fragments in groups of 4 that can increase you up to 6 dots. Your life refills when you go back to the hub, but you can also restore it by planting life seeds you find lying around or hidden in destructible boxes scattered around the world. You can consume the plant immediately to restore life, but it's only good once until you leave the area and come back later. The world is interlaced with fast travel points, all leading back to the Reaper offices, which serves as the hub. As you enter each branching area, you'll often find a door pretty quickly that will then add another door to the hallways of the office that you can use back and forth. The game also heavily uses the shortcut loop around that you can see in a lot of games like Dark Souls, where once you've cleared a particular difficult or longer path, you'll find yourself just on the other side of a gate or ladder that can be unlocked or dropped to make the pathway more streamlined from entrance to exit. This is especially good in that when you die, your character will often respawn from the closest door, so you're continually making gradual progress. There are a handful of weapons you can find with slightly different stats, including their strength and speed. I did find myself keeping with the first sword most of the game though, just because of its balance of speed and power. As you kill enemies, you'll gather and harvest their souls. You can also find pink glowing orbs scattered about that will grant an immediate 100 to your count. Upon death, there is no penalty upon your souls count, so no fear there. You can spend that accumulation in the main hub world to upgrade 4 different stats: your melee attack power, your melee attack speed, your range attack power, and your dodge speed and cooldown. I do want to emphasize how little each step actually makes a difference though. Each power-up has 5 steps up, but I have to say incrementally from one to the other, it's really difficult to tell a difference. After a couple upgrades, you could see that early enemies went from taking 3 hits to 2, and maybe you could feel a slight reduction in the delay from when you can roll again, but overall the power-ups were pretty unimpressive. So in addition to the aforementioned starting bow and arrow, halfway through each dungeon you'll receive a new spell. These can be used in combat, but of course are used for puzzle solving and traversal as well. Really wanted to avoid calling this game a mini Zelda clone. When you go in and you have a spell even named Hookshot, it's kind of difficult to do. But yes, there's a lot of retreading you can do with these new powers to uncover the game's multiple secrets, including those shards to upgrade life and magic, as well as some spell upgrades. All that said, all the basic puzzles to make progress in dungeons are a bit on the simple side. I don't think I broke my pace once to try and figure out where to go or how to solve what was in front of me, which, could just come from years of playing these types of games, but I do think the complexity is pretty low. That, however, is contrasted with the boss fights, which were probably the highlight for me personally. Each had learnable patterns, but even then could be tricky and take a bit of practice. One minor whining about this type of game that I have is when your roll is faster than your regular movement. I was always trying to traverse quickly, and for some reason, it's just a pet peeve of mine when I find myself compelled to roll everywhere for speed. Graphically, the tone of the game fits well with the color scheme. A lot of places seem a bit faded, and this looks especially neat when contrasted with your character's attacks, each weapon leaving a different color of bright streaks, and each spell having its own as well. I do have to give Acid Nerve props too, because I'm not sure I've ever seen something like this before. But there are signposts in the game with wooden crows pointing various directions that you can read for guidance. If you were to, say, vandalize this sign by slashing it, you can then actually read the pieces of it, and the text box is split into its two parts. Really thought that was a fun touch. The music tapped something in me too. I'm not sure if it was hitting some sort of nostalgia button or what. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but yeah, it was really well done. Overall, Death's Door presents a somber world that fits well with the story's tone and theme, thoughtful combat, plenty of secrets if you don't mind retreading areas with new gear, some fun, challenging bosses, some weak upgrades to spend your souls on. The puzzles were a bit on the easy side and not really too inspired beyond anything we're seeing in this genre at all. Rated as an open world item procedural adventure, Death's Door closes at a 69 out of 100 on my 0 to 100 scale, or 50 as an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching.